We're here live with Billy Johnson. Billy, could you tell us about your origins?
Yeah, well, musically speaking, it goes back a while. It goes back a while because my father was born in 1915. Of course, he was a musician, uh, tap dancer from the Brown Skin Review in 1930. So, anyways, going back from his origins, his mother played piano in Sanctified Church, and his grandmother played piano in a Baptist church. But those weren't the only origins of the music because my great grandmother, her name was Mama Groves, was born in 1863 uh, in New Orleans. And you know what was happening during that time. Abraham Lincoln was running for his second term and freeing the slaves. And a lot of stuff was happening, so the slaves were joining up the army, and the women were fleeing on foot, and the women and children were being killed for leaving the plantation. So, make a long story short, her family went through the Underground Railroad to up to Canada, and made it. And when she went to school there, educated there, so she was a pretty astute businesswoman by the time she left. She came back to New Orleans looking for her family in her, I guess, mid-20s or something. Everybody was gone. They had gone through the Great Migration. All right. So she found family in Kentucky, Indiana, southern Indiana. She married a guy from Kentucky, Hop Groves. Anyways, so she quickly put her money together and stuff, and then started a hotel, a black-owned hotel that was on the Green Book list. All right. So, of course, you know that through the history, the Green Book is a place where black musicians lived or housed themselves while they were on the road. So during segregation, you couldn't stay in a white hotel. So these were black hotels, and they were placed around the country in various miles. And sometimes you might have to drive 200 miles just to get to her hotel. But so my father was there as a baby, and so he grew up around all these famous musicians. Fats Waller was one of the musicians that stayed in that house. Jelly Roll Morton, I understand. Bill Robinson, Bojangles, stayed there a lot. I guess he was instrumental in teaching him how to tap dance. And Billie Holiday. Anyway, so it was various names, big names that were traveling around the country and staying in this hotel, some for long periods of time, some for short periods. So he learned how to sing and dance and play ukulele. Kids were playing ukulele back then. They were tuning it like a four-string guitar. And four-string guitar was it was the popular guitar before 1936 when Charlie Christensen came in and with the six-string guitar. So it was called a tenor guitar. And most of the jazz musicians, or most of the musicians, period, played tenor guitar. And that goes through all genres. So that was a popular. Just like the C melody was very popular until Coleman Hawkins made the tenor saxophone the popular instrument in the saxophone family. So, well, the same thing with guitar. The five-string guitar or four-string guitar was called a tenor guitar. So he was recruited by my dad was recruited by the Brown Skin Review. And it was a dance group, a minstrel show that traveled around America. And he was recruited there in 1930. At that time, he was 15 years old. And he was there to about 36, 37, around there, where he did a flip off the stage at the Apollo Theater and broke both of his ankles at the same time. And of course, they had to leave him behind. It's a hard way to go. It's a hard way. You can't walk, you can't dance no more. But he had this golden voice, and he played the four-string guitar. So as soon as he healed up, I guess he bummed around New York for a couple of years, playing various jobs, and then he went back. He went to Chicago, or actually he went to Terre Haute, Indiana. Teamed up with a guy by the name of Scatman Crothers, and they were doing a radio show together in Terre Haute, Indiana. The Scatman was from Terre Haute, and my father was from Bedford, Indiana. I gotta see how close those two cities are, because they knew each other as kids.
You said Bedford and what?
Bedford, Indiana, and Terre Haute. Anyways, so he was. Then after that show ended, the radio show, he made his way to Chicago, where I guess the war had started. He went to the war. No, I think before the war started. He was playing the speakeasies for it's a touring circuit for territorial bands in the Midwest. So, of course, if you work in those territory bands, they were probably ran by the mob in some kind of way. In his case, being in Chicago, Al Capone had control of all that stuff. So he worked around and wherever they sent him to work. Of course, in those days, early 40s, late 30s, a gig could last 8 months, a year, where you'd be in, you have a gig, for real. You didn't have a Saturday night like you do now, You had a gig. And then, that lasted for a long time. But somewhere in between there, and then Al sent him to his brother, Ralph Capone, and he worked the Minneapolis, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan territories. I think Indiana was even included in that. But anyways, those were Ralph Capone's territories. So, and then he went to the war, and then he came out, and he worked for Bob Help Jab Granny shows, in the overseas shows in New Guinea. And he was a frontline daytime and entertainer at night. Amazing story. But anyways, he survived it all, and he knew that there were plenty of gigs in Wisconsin because, that's where Ralph was still headquartered. And he came back to Wisconsin where he got gigs and he was able to work. At that time, he was a trailblazer, and he brought the black musicians downtown in the city of Milwaukee, right after World War II. So he paved the way for all the black musicians to blend in with the white musicians. So because they were separate. Anyways, he put them together, and he's noted for that. But during all that, I was born '54, and toward the end of segregation, but still, it wasn't really integrated until I was 9 years old. So all the musicians we rehearsed at my dad's at the house, So I remember Louis Jordan come over when I was a kid. He liked to throw me up to the ceiling. I didn't know this guy. This is my dad's friend. I didn't know he was anybody. Everybody came over. This is my dad's friend. So. But it was like being instilled in me at a very young age, and things like that. John Kirby. When he left New York, he was in a bad way with his alcoholism, from what I understand. He went to Chicago. He had a marriage breakup, and he went to Chicago. And he was working with my dad. So people like that, when I was a baby, were hanging out, and I didn't think of it. It's just a regular day for me. I just couldn't wait to get thrown up to the ceiling. But I started very early on drums, 4 years old or something. Never had a drum set. I used to play on brushes on newspaper. Well, after a couple of years of that, I got really bored. I didn't get a drum set. So I started playing guitar, junior high school, playing the school dances and stuff like that. I just played the rhythm guitar. My dad liked that, but he didn't really want me to play R&B music. I joined a blues band. He really got pissed off. He came and sat in. He would come sit in, sing, But he wanted me to play just jazz. So he got mad because I had my amp, which was my amp, over at the church, and we were rehearsing at church. And his amp broke down, so he needed my amp, and he got pissed off because my amp was at the church, and it was getting close to his gig, So we ended up getting the amp, and he got pissed because I was playing R&B, and he took the amp and the guitar away from me. And I was like, wow, he's serious about jazz. But anyways, I picked up the bass after high school. I knew I had the sound in me, how it was supposed to sound, because all these old bass players, they didn't use amps. Later on when I was like junior high school, they were using this thing called a Diamond pickup. It was a big silver thing that would stick onto the bass, And it was a horrible sound. I thought it didn't sound like a bass anymore. But my first gigs on the bass were without amps, and very high action, and a lot of them were outdoors. So my dad said I was ready, but I didn't think I was. But he said I was ready after 2 weeks of playing the bass, and I started working with him. So, but I had the sound in my head that I wasn't getting when I started. So, and I had great teachers, but I wasn't getting the sound that I heard as a kid. So all my friends, they were all, the ones that were playing bass, they were all working on a whole lot of notes to play in solos and stuff like that. But I was just working on getting that one note. So I would practice one note for a few hours every day. Just one note until it sounded like what I heard, but as a kid. Then I'd move on to another note. So I went all over the whole bass like that for a couple of years. Of course, I was practicing like 15 hours a day. But yeah, and that's how it started. So actually, I'm just now learning how to play. But it's been over 50 years. But I'm really just now learning how to play. But what's kept me working when I was in my right mind was that one note. So when I auditioned for Lionel Hebner's band back in '88, all these bass players were in there reading their asses off. And I couldn't sight read at that time. Man, I don't know why you even brought me here. Vincent Herron brought me over there. And I was like, I don't even know why you brought me here, man. These guys are sight reading and playing solos and shit. I can't do that. He was like, nah, don't worry about it, man. So, my turn came up. I was like number 20. I mean, bass players all lined the whole place, Carroll Studios, all around the walls. I was like number 20. And I said, I had to be truthful. I said, Lionel, I can't sight read this. He said, can you read the chord changes? I said, yeah, I can read them. He said, well, read the chord changes. I said, that'll work. So he counted it off, and I hit that one note, and he stopped. He turned around, looked at me right away, and I felt something at that point. I felt that I had the gig. But the band went on strike, and they were going to Japan. So the musicians union called me up, local 802. And they said, we understand you're next on the list to work with Lionel. He's in Japan right now, but when he comes back, they're going to call you. I said, really? And he said, yeah, but he said, we don't want you to work for him because he's not a union band. It's a non-union band. So I said, oh, all right. So, I won't work for him if you find me a gig with that kind of exposure, and apprenticeship like that. Then I won't. So they said, yeah, we'll find that for you. I'm still waiting on their call because they never called. They never called. So sure enough, he called. He called when they got back, and I worked with. That's how I got in that band. One note, and I haven't looked back since. So that's it.
Could you tell us the story of what brought you to New York?
Oh well, the story that brought me to New York. Okay, that's interesting. I was in college. I was working on a performance degree at the Milwaukee Conservatory College of Music, or Milwaukee College of I don't know, but it was accredited school. It was accredited school at the time, and I was there. And I had a girlfriend. And I was in my last semester, going into my last semester, when we broke up, and her boyfriend was a pretty evil character. He was 20 years older than her. Chief narcotics police officer. Anyways, when all that happened, he started threatening me, and then when he called up my mother and started threatening her, I figured maybe my brother was already in New York. My sister had married George Bray, and they were all in New York, and I said, well, it's 1979, and I came to New York, and, and I didn't get that bachelor. I didn't get that bachelor's degree in performing arts, but I got a rude awakening in New York, and I was placed with all these just because of my name. Sometimes it's a curse to come from a musical family, because if you're not up to par, they just give you the gig anyways, and it's like a guilt trip your whole life. Because you're not ready, but they're giving you stuff, and you're working on their stuff, and you can't work on your stuff because you're trying to keep that little gig, which is very, very notable. And because these weren't like my peers; these were like masters calling me, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was just pushed right into it, and I didn't think I was ready. Just like when my dad, had me playing after 2 weeks, I wasn't ready, And he said, "You are," and I said, "I ain't." But he said, "Don't worry, I'll play the bass on guitar." Well, that wasn't happening in New York. I had to play the bass. So it's kind of a curse, especially if you don't do well on the gig. Then first impression is the lasting impression, and it's just and it's serious. One time I was up at the Jazz Forum, and Dexter Gordon and Woody Shaw were playing. Cats were sitting in, and Stafford James was playing with Woody. And they pushed me up there. I didn't want to go up there. They pushed me up there anyway. It's a guilt trip, but yeah, I was happy to go up there. True enough. I was like, whoa. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm going. So I went up there. I went up there and played, and I think we got to the tune Stella, and there was one change I wasn't hearing, and I forgot it, but I couldn't hear it because I was so damn nervous. I was like, I couldn't hear it. So, anyways, all the bass players cornered me. Rufus Reed, Stafford James, Don Pate, Fred Hopkins. I mean, all the bass players that were there in the house, they cornered me in the corner. Why'd you come to New York? I was like, to tell you the truth, I came to New York because I wanted to save my life and learn how to play. They said, wrong. You should be able to play when you get here. And it's the truth. Because, you read about Ray Brown coming to New York. He came to New York. Bam! The next day he was working with Bird. That's how I wanted to come to New York. But things didn't happen like that for me, so they happened the way they happened, and it was a good thing that I played one note that carried me through all that mess I was going through. It's a mental trip when you know you're not there, and people are pushing you to be there. It could be a mental trip if you make it a mental trip. I made it a mental trip. Looking back on it, I shouldn't have. If I felt like that, like the way I feel now, I wouldn't have.
Could you tell us about some of the people you worked with?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I before I came to New York, I was working with people. They were like my mentors, like Melvin Ryan, Berkeley Fudge, tenor saxophone player. Great tenor saxophone player in Milwaukee. Manty Ellis, guitarist, and I was studying under Mitchell Colvick, who was working with Buddy Montgomery, so I could go and watch Buddy play. And my friend from junior high school was playing with Buddy, Jeff Chambers, and junior high, and so I got to play with people like that in the very beginning, because of like I said, I was playing with people like that because of who I was. I was born in this family, of musicians. And they just all wanted, they were giving me basses, all kind of stuff. They all wanted me to do it. So when I came to New York, I was working on the street corner with my brother-in-law and my brother, George Braith, famous George Braith with Braithphone. The instrument was a prototype at the time. It hadn't really been manufactured yet. So he was going through a series of changes with the horn at the time. But it was a great apprenticeship because he had in the band Tom Turrentine. He had Larry Smith in the band. Artie Simmons played trombone. When we did things inside, he was using like Albert Daly, Ronnie Matthews, and I was like, damn. Even though I wasn't ready, I still had a note. I had problems getting up on top of the beat, but I could play swing good. I could play swing good. But anyways, I ended up with Abbey Lincoln in 1980, between 80 and 81. And then we started touring around Europe and different places around the world. We did a CD for Engine Records, a German company out of Munich. And that floated us down the next 10 years, So, of course, one other gigs that I played with Charles Davis, the great Charles Davis the baritone saxophone player that turned tenor, and Tex Allen. Tex Allen was a great composer, trumpet player. They had a group together, so I worked with that group, and Larry Wilson's on piano. Sometimes Michael Carvin was on drums. Woo! And my brother, another guy. Forget his name. It'll come to me. But anyways, so and then a mixture of their friends. We start playing. Working with Dewey Redman. I worked with Muhal Richard Abrams, and I got on the avant-garde scene. And I was on that scene playing with a lot of them guys. I don't even remember their names anymore. But and then the gig came up with Lionel Hampton. That led me to the gig with Illinois Jack Cat. Also led me to the gig with Panama Francis, Boy Celtics band. And that led me to other big band gigs, George G, and then various little things, one-nighters or something like that with big bands. But then Arthur Taylor asked me to be in his band. And I joined that band, and a lot of other stuff happening because of that end, So then I ended up with Wallace Roney, and then Jerry Allen, and Abraham Burton, of course, because we were in the band together, And then he got an end record deal. We did a few albums with them, and yeah. I mean, it's like once you play with one, you play with everybody around them. Eventually, you get it around to everybody, And that's kind of what happened.
Could you tell us about some of these masters? One that comes to mind is A.T. How was he as a person?
Immaculate. Abby Lincoln used to say, you play good, but you're not great. Which hurt my feelings, She said, you know why you're not great? I said, why? She said, because you don't live great. You have to live great in your life. That makes you a great person. And consequently, at the same time, you're a great musician because of it. But you don't do that. I had a bunch of girlfriends, and she didn't really, I don't think she liked that. And that's part of it, So A.T. was great. Place was immaculate. Did all the right, correct stuff. Hung out with the right people. Never bad talked to anybody. Tried to help people. Play music. Very, very respectful person. All the way around. And he loved to play. So he liked to play every day for 5 hours with his band. So I did like a 2-year stint with him, and then he passed away. But most of it was in that room right there. 5 hours every day. Sometimes it'd be 7, 8 hours, Guys be hanging out, And he would give us all the stories from all the masters that he worked with. And I remember when I first started this band, like I said, I had problems getting up on top of the beat. Anyways, he endured that rehearsal for about a week and a half, and he hit the rim shot, bam, loud. My ears started ringing. They still ringing. He said, listen, I need to get, I'm working too hard here, because you're playing on the beat, but I need to be on top of the beat. That means being on top of me, because I'm on top of the beat. You got to be on top of me. I was like, whoa. He said, yeah, and I need you to be like that tomorrow, because we're opening up Tuesday at the Vanguard. And if you're not like that tomorrow, I'm gonna give you a bass player. Now, I let go of it. everybody I was playing with, Illinois, Abbey, and all the other associations I had. Lionel, I stopped working with everybody just to rehearse with him and be in his band because I wanted to play, you know, I wanted to play in a smaller group, and I needed to play on top of the beat. And so I was having a problem. Here it is. Here it is. Now I'm faced with it again. You know, first impression's a lasting impression. Even though he gave me a chance, I had to come up to that. I did. So we talked until about 10 o'clock that evening. You know, we drank some cognac, listened to music. He was explaining to me about being on top of him, you know, and where all the drummers were that were on top, and who was most on top and who wasn't. You know, he knew everything. So I came out of there, so I was like, man, that's like every time I get on top like that, I just fall off. I lose my balance, and I can't hold it up there because either it goes fast or I fall off. So what I did was I went out there with the impression that it was controlled madness. I went home and worked on it. The next day I was on top of it. That's how it happened.
Could you tell us how the scene has changed over the years?
Well, even though the scene has changed, it's a natural progression because everything moves so fast in America because of slavery. You know, every 10 years a new style comes up, a new genre in jazz. It's unlike in Europe, you know, in the old country they call it. It took like 100 years to reach a classical period where everything all comes together, all the arts, the sciences come together and peak at the same time. Right there is your classical period at the top, and then it tapers off. You know, I had a professor, Margaret Hawkins, she used to say crescendo curve because the way art peaked at the same, and science peaked at the same time. So while that's declining, a new genre is coming up, and each 100 years you have a classical period. So, but here in the New World, we have a classical period. We have a classical period every 10 years. So with that being said, not only that, but if you look around, if you stay around here for 20 years at least, you'll see the city make a complete transformation in 10 years. Every 10 years. It's kind of funny how that works. But look at it now. Look at the city now. It didn't look like this when I came in here in 1978, first time. It did not look like this. Now it's like New York on steroids. But the music has changed. The players have changed. You know, out with the old in and the new. I came in at the, you know, not quite at the masters were still around, I can say. Masters. I was able to see quite a lot of people, you know. Yeah. Slam Stewart. Red Calendar. The Judge, Milton Hinton. Keita Betts. You know, Sam Jones. Beach Reed. Ron Carter. Larry Wrigley. You know, when I came into New York before I left, I was in Milwaukee, and I went to Chicago with my brother-in-law and my brother. My brother-in-law is George Brady, by the way. And we played Wilbur Wells Memorial in Chicago. And then when I moved to New York, shortly after that, Wilbur Wells Memorial was going on at Tim Palace. That's long gone. Lay's Fort. Those clubs are gone down on the Lower East Side, on the Bowery. Clubs came up, they come and go. Jazz Forum was a great place. Great place. You could sit in, you know. In fact, you know, if you were a young musician back in those days, these clubs that catered to jazz musicians and jazz and provided music for the New Yorkers and the tourists as well. They were really clubs. I don't know if they're clubs anymore. Not like that. I mean, because you can go in the Village Vanguard. If you're a musician, they let you in for free, you know. And you go stand up in the standing room around the bar. All you got to do was order drinks and, you know, hang out and then converse with all the other musicians that were in that section. And when the cats get off the stage, you can converse with them. And then on Sundays, they allowed you to come back and sit in with these great musicians. You know, if you had yourself together, you had a great opportunity to get work with masters. Like in the Jazz Forum, it was the same kind of thing. You started on Tuesday and you played through Sunday. And on Sunday, the young guy would come up and sit in with the old guard. You know, maybe kind of still happening in a sense, but the old guard is gone pretty much. There's the young guys who were on apprenticeships under their apprentice. And I was fortunate to be one of those guys. Boy, I really learned a lot when I came to New York. Because music was not played like that where I came from. And it was played very well. There were, like, you go around the Midwest, you better not go in there thinking you can cut somebody. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get your feelings hurt. There's too many good musicians all over. They didn't have to be in New York. The masters were all around this country. Toledo, Cleveland, you know, Chicago, Indianapolis, Detroit, Ann Arbor, you know, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Wisconsin. You go up to Minnesota, you go to Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities. It was happening all around the country. I don't think you go like, I'm from New York. You would get your butt cut. You get your feelings hurt. By little kids.
Could you tell us about working with Abby Lincoln?
Yeah, that was an experience.
There you go.
Hot dog.
She really schooled me. And she gave me an opportunity. Kind-hearted person. You know? I'm going to tell the truth, I wasn't really ready to play with all these people. But they were kind-hearted. A lot of them. A lot of times, first impression is last impression. But, you know, most of the time, it's really not. But Abby was unique.
Hey, we're 213. Let's play the 3. Great. You want to put a case back on that table? I think somebody wants to take it.